Bestie, I have been thinking about you. Okay, I think about you. And I think about the things that I think we should talk about. And today's episode, I put a lot of thought into this. This is actually a conversation that I've been having with some clients, and I thought you could benefit from it. So I found myself wondering, have you ever felt like you were living a double life, but like not in the dramatic Hollywood style secret agent kind of way, but like in the sense that your actions didn't fully align with who you know yourself to be? Like maybe you believe in health but struggle with consistency and taking care of yourself, or you value honesty but you find yourself people pleasing to avoid conflict. That inner tension, that's incongruence, and it's probably exhausting. Today, we're going to talk about congruence, really the power of aligning your behaviors with your values, identity, and beliefs. When you live a congruent life, you minimize stress, doubt, frustration. You get to show up in the world as your most authentic, most powerful self. And by the way, that's the you that, friends want to have a bestie with, is the authentic, powerful you, the real you. So, when I think about some of the things that you're going to learn in this episode, we're going to talk about why congruence matters, some of the science behind it, how to identify incongruence in your life, and, you know, my usual, like, you got to have some practical strategies to help live congruently, and also how this is really going to benefit you. And, I'm going to ask you some questions about it. So, first, let's talk about why this is important. When you and I are out of alignment, friend, our actions contradict our values. And then we get this internal conflict, this stress, frustration. You know what I'm talking about, where truly you just feel exhausted, you feel burnout, you know that you are not living in congruence with who you are. I think about a time in my life, and it was earlier on in my daughter's life. And I was working just obscene amounts of hours and not spending time with her like I wanted to. And I would tell you that being a mom is my most important role. It is the most important thing to me. If I want to spend my time somewhere, it's with my daughter, now my children. And I was totally out of congruence with myself, with who I said that I was. And I can't even tell you the level of stress, the level of frustration, the internal conflict that I was carrying because I wasn't living in congruence with who I said that I was. There's research that shows that when we live in congruence, it enhances our well being, it reduces stress, and even increases motivation. We like that, eh? Not even Canadian, but eh. So if I have any Canadian people, my bad. So our unconscious mind, and you hear me talk about the unconscious mind all the time. Our unconscious mind seeks consistency. So if your actions contradict your beliefs, then your brain is in what's called cognitive dissonance, meaning something is just not right. It feels off. And then we get things like confusion and self-doubt and even engaging in avoidance behaviors. Like have you ever been like, yeah, I know I need to do that, but I'm scrolling Instagram or TikTok or whatever instead. Yeah. So there's so much power in consistency. And yet, if we are out of alignment, if we are living in incongruence, there's a lack of consistency in our life. Why this is important from a Stoic perspective, if you listen to me long enough, I heavily align with Stoicism. And we have this ability to govern ourselves and align our actions with our own inner wisdom, also biblical truth. And it is this essence for resilience and self mastery. So I want you to think about how powerful it is when we are actually living in alignment. Is we can have resilience and self mastery. It's it's a very powerful thing. So now you've got why this is important. Let's talk about what it is. Very simply, congruence equals alignment with self. It's when your thoughts, your beliefs, your values and behaviors are all in sync. There is such a dissonance that happens, an incongruence that happens when our behaviors are so out of alignment with our thoughts, with our beliefs, with our values, with who we say that we are. I not to be political, but there is a massive incongruence happening in culture, where many times what people say that they believe, their behaviors don't align with that, or people are trying to get that, but there's still this dissonance. There's so much incongruence that happens. When I think about congruence, it means being the same person in all situations rather than shifting to please others or avoid discomfort. I think about someone who really struggles with telling the truth or lying, whichever way that you want to say that. I think about a person like that, where it's like they can't remember what they said when they said it, or what the truth is. And there's this, like, this just this continual shifting of, man, I don't even know who I am or what I said. I mean, have you ever said yes to please someone else when you knew you should have said no? I can totally raise my hand. I have this little person inside me that wants people to be happy with me, and to feel accepted. And this little person living inside me has totally done things to please other people, to say yes when I should say no. And a lot of times, by the way, many of those things were actually really good things. I love my husband. I so appreciate him, because he'll say, "Babe, do you have margin for that?" When I'm like, "Babe, I want to do this thing. I think it's going to be so good." Or so and so asked me. He's like, "Do you have margin for that?" And I love that question, because it helps me to stay in congruence with what I say is important to me. I don't know about you, but I've totally had the things that I say that are important to me fall to the wayside, because I've wanted to avoid some sort of discomfort. I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I know there's people that work out all the time and that love working out. And I totally believe in working out. And I love working out when I'm feeling really strong about myself. But like strong, like I can lift heavy weights and I can do these things. And, but it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to push ourselves. So I can say all day long that I value health, but how often am I going to Hot Works? How often am I lifting healthy things? I'm talking to myself right now. There is such a power of living in congruence. And by the way, your unconscious mind craves congruence. When we are out of alignment, it triggers a stress response, because our mind is wired for integrity. Her mind is wired for congruence. Isn't that a wild thing? It's like why people sometimes are like just live in chaos, but really it's because they're out of alignment, and what they need to do is get back in alignment. Now, you could go, some people feel more comfortable in chaos, but also their brain in some way, like, has believed that chaos is congruent. Anyways, I could probably go down a rabbit trail for that one, but I'm not going to go down that trail. you know there's this other thing that's called identity level alignment, and that's when who you believe yourself to be is reflected in your daily life. So all of these different things, identity level, alignment itself, integrity, congruence, all of those words really build towards this concept of living in congruence. I am who I say that I am in all situations, with all people. My behaviors are in alignment with my values, with my beliefs, with my thoughts. These things follow suit. And sometimes, by the way, we really need to get our thought life in order so that we can get our behavior life in order. I think that's the power of breakthrough sessions. I have some episodes on them where it's like let's deal with the stuff so we can really become who we were created to become. Now, let's talk about some signs of incongruence for a moment, just so like you get this really good picture of what this actually is. When you feel like you're living on autopilot or you're disconnected with yourself, it's like same day, same thing, different day, over and over and over. That can be a sign that autopilot can actually be a sign of disconnection. It's like being dissociated with yourself. You're just, wake up, do whatever things, go to bed, rinse and repeat. There's a significant lack of presence. Maybe you struggle with anxiety or self doubt when making decisions. That's a sign of incongruence. Maybe you act one way in public or with a particular group of people, but you actually feel very different internally. That's incongruence. Maybe you feel stuck or unfulfilled despite checking all these boxes in your life. Well, you might not actually be checking boxes that are valuable to you, that mean something to you. So, if I were to flip this for a second, some signs of congruence are when you are able to be present, when you are connected with yourself. When a lot of times, and maybe you've had this experience when whatever you're doing, you're like, I am exactly where I'm supposed to be, doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. That is a picture of congruence. Uh, a picture of congruence is when you are able to just make decisions and trust yourself. Now, sometimes we make decisions that we trusted ourselves for and they don't work out as planned. Well, okay. Another sign of congruence is, all right, well, that didn't go as planned. Now I'm going to make the next right decision, whatever I believe that is, because I trust myself. I know what my values are. I know what my beliefs are. I know what my thoughts are. Another sign of congruence, the same person with all people in all situations. I mean, it makes sense, right? That you would feel incongruent if you're a different person with a different group of people. Now, I'm not talking about when when we show up as a different, like I have different parts of myself. Uh, and I have this part of me that is really playful and silly. And my kids get that part. I mean, I can't tell you like all the songs that I make up and sing, all like just they're so silly. And my husband sees that part, and then I have some really close friends and like sometimes my like extended my extended family will see that. People that are really close to me get to see that playful part of me. Now, just because I'm not that part of me, maybe in other groups of people or other situations, doesn't mean that I'm incongruent. It just means that I allow different parts of me to show up other places. I hope that makes sense because it's not a pretend, it's not a facade. If I'm playful here but not playful there, I don't leave the situations where I'm not playful and go, oh man, I regret not doing that, or I wish I was this way. And sometimes I'm playful in sessions with clients because it's warranted and it's very genuine to who I am. But I want to make that distinction. So when you're in a place where you feel like you are moving forward, that you are fulfilled, that you are taking action on what you say is important to you, that's a sign of congruence. So I think that you've got like a solid picture of what this is and maybe where you're doing this in your own life. So let's talk about, friend, let's talk about how to live in congruence. Well, in order to even live in congruence, and I'm actually going to do an entire episode on this coming up, but you have to really clarify your identity. You have to ask yourself, and by the way, this evolves over time, but you have to ask yourself, who am I really? Who am I really? Because If you don't know who you are, well, it's going to make it really hard for your thoughts and beliefs and values and then behaviors to align with who you are if you don't know who that is. So, for the first question is we got to answer, who am I really? And then you start to ask yourself, well, what are my true values, beliefs, desires, thoughts? And when I was even going through this, navigating this for myself, I made a list of different things and I was like, well, what do I believe about this? What do I believe about this? What do I believe about this? Where do my values show up here? And it helped me really begin to take action and help my behaviors align with who I say that I am. I'm hoping that you can see why this would be very important, right? And that's part of that journaling perspective, is really starting to put some of these things on paper. There's a scripture in Proverbs 23:7 that says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. And I want you to really recognize that your identity shapes your reality. As you think in your heart, so are you. Your identity, who you believe that you are, begins to shape what you do. So you need to know who you are. Now, the next part is you can know who you are and you can be out of alignment. So you need to identify where you are out of alignment. What areas of your life do you feel off? What areas are creating stress? Friend, where do you say one thing but do another? For example, if you believe in honesty but avoid hard conversations, there is a gap there. You are not in alignment. So you may want to consider listing your top 5 values and then rate and be honest with yourself. Rate how aligned you are in your daily life and how your daily actions align with them. Then, friend, you need to reprogram your unconscious mind for congruence. I want you to really think about this. When you're reprogramming your unconscious mind for congruence, what you're doing is you're changing the internal story about yourself. Instead of saying, I'm bad at consistency, what you need to shift to is, I'm becoming the kind of person who follows through. You need to do this. Friend, you may really need to change the story about who you are. Okay? You need to change that story, because if you're like, I'm not good enough, and I've done other episodes on this, but if you're like, I'm not good enough, then you might live in congruence with that, which is not what we want. We want you to be congruent with who you really are, which is good enough. Now, something that you can do is you can just close your eyes for a moment, and and if you're driving, pull over or do this later, okay? Imagine yourself fully aligned. What would she look like? What would she say? What would she see, feel, hear? And really align yourself with that person. And then you can create what's called an anchor by touching your wrist, by touching a knuckle, and really reinforce that state. It's simple, it's called anchoring. And what I would encourage you to do is not only imagine this fully aligned state, but also to go back in your history and find moments where you felt fully congruent, fully aligned, fully in purpose, that you were truly living out who you are, that maybe you said that you were going to do something and then you followed through on it. Anchor those moments, anchor those states. And then what's super cool, by the way, about an anchor is when you need to activate it, you just touch it and then boom, it activates that state internally. It's actually very amazing. And then maybe you need to really practice the things that you are speaking over yourself. Like, I act in alignment with my values daily. Now, again, when you know what your values are, you don't just say, I act in alignment with my values daily. You say, I operate in excellence. I'm full of moxie. Moxie is one of my values. Yeah, moxie. Next, you need to use the power of small, consistent actions over time. Congruence is built through actions, built through habits. It's, you may go, all right, I value health. So let's say that you go to the gym once. All right. Well, that's not going to create long term alignment. What's going to create long term alignment is consistent effort over time. James Clear in Atomic Habits says, every action is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. And enough votes over time equal that person is voted into office. Who do you want to be? Like, what you needs to be voted into office? So if you value health, I'm just coming back to that because I just find it so easy. Thinking about meal prepping or a 10-minute workout is way more impactful than waiting for motivation. By the way, there's this misconception about motivation. A lot of people think that you have to have motivation in order to take action. But research actually tells us that motivation comes at the middle to the end of something, not at the beginning. So if you're waiting for the motivation, it may never come. And by the way, sometimes people are like, yeah, I have to feel so negative about myself, like I'm the worst, and then I take action. Well, can you think about how over time that's going to really work against you? That in order to be motivated about something, you have to think something really negative about yourself? That's probably totally unrelated to this episode, and yet it was for somebody. Now, when you're thinking about living in congruence, I really want to encourage you, like, get with your besties, have accountability. You need a trusted friend, a coach, a mentor, someone who can challenge you when you step out of alignment. If there's an area of your life that you're like, yeah, I'm just really struggling in this, whatever this is, don't do it alone. Don't do it alone. You weren't created to do it alone. So don't, right? If we do things alone, one, we're stuck in our own head and we don't have that accountability, and we all need it. We all need people in our lives to help us walk in congruence with who we were created to be. I know you get that. I'm sensing it. I feel it. I come back to Proverbs here, where Proverbs 13:20 says, whoever walks with the wise becomes wise. This is why we need people in our life. If you're out of congruence, find someone in congruence. And they don't have to be it in maybe every area. Maybe it's just that area that you're really struggling with that you go, I'm totally out of balance here. I'm out of alignment. I'm out of congruence. I need help. Go get with that person. And by the way, you can be my words just got all bumbled up. You can be accountability for yourself in this way by saying, hey, self, did my actions reflect my values this week? Where did I see excellence? Where did I see moxie? Where did I see generosity? And if not, what do I need to adjust in order to make sure that my actions reflect my values? It is so powerful to take an inventory of who we are, of what we're doing, of the actions we're taking in life. I hope you're really getting that yes, we need people, and you can also check in on yourself. And by the way, I encourage it and I do it. So let me just give you some questions, some things to really think through. So first, in what areas of my life do I feel misaligned or out of integrity? Second question: what are my top 3 values, and do my daily actions reflect them? Oh, it's about to get serious, bestie. Where am I saying one thing and doing another? What small step can I take to bridge that gap? 4. How does my unconscious mind react when I'm out of congruence? What patterns do I notice? And number 5, what is one identity shift I need to make to fully align with the person I want to become? I really, bestie, encourage you to ask yourself these questions. They are so powerful. And by the way, when we ask ourselves these questions, what they do is create awareness internally and also help you take action. I want you, bestie, to truly become the best version of yourself, to feel the feelings of fulfillment, of like just authentic connection with who you are by living in congruence. So, just do it, okay? All right, bestie. Until next week.